We do all kinds of things here at Word in Your Ear.
Videocasts like this.
Podcasts like this.
Crowdcast events with famous authors.
Live quizzes.
And we can guarantee to make your next birthday one you'll never forget.
There's only one way to guarantee getting all of this, to getting it before anybody else, and that's to sign on to be a supporter on Patreon.
Full details at this address.
Word in Your Attic, a Zoom with a view.
We're delighted to be joined from a very vacant attic by a friend of the pod, Jenny Colgan. Jenny, where do we find you? And why is it so empty?
Hi, I am in Edinburgh. It is an uncharacteristically sunny morning, if you look at it.
Oh my God, well, yeah.
And we moved in last week.
Oh, right, oh, good grief.
And what we've done is this apartment belonged to a very handsome kind of single chap. And now there's 3 kids, me, my husband, and 2 dogs. And everything, as you can see, is white. It's like something out of John Lennon video or a terrible David Brent video.
It's precisely that, isn't it? It's John Lennon. We just want the white piano in the corner, the window blinds. But you're going to wreck the place. It's going to be coming with footprints on the wall soon.
I think my husband's very keen that we would keep it kind of quite pristine. And I think he has to give in to the inevitable sooner rather than later and just deal with the fact that it's this lifestyle he has in his head is not a possibility. Especially, we're in Edinburgh, there's a garden across the road. We have a basement for the dogs, which is just covered in mud all the time. It's just a wet country. So bless his California dream. So let's see, we should come back and do it in a year.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Is this one of those properties that's referred to by Scottish friends as tenements, which is an expression used up there and not down here? Is that kind of thing?
It is. It's a Newtown block. Yeah, it was built as a flat, but a very long time ago.
Right.
So now I want to tell you. Do you want to see the rest of it?
Yeah. Take us around.
Go
through the keyhole. Go.
It's a proper estate agent's tour, so deceptively spacious. Ideal for barbecues. Yeah.
I will just show you this.
Oh my Lord, that's beautiful.
It's a disco.
It's ridiculous. It's kind of, you can hear me now echoing.
What's the floor made of?
Oh my God, it's marble. It's doomed. We're doomed, I tell you, doomed.
That is unbelievable. It's gorgeous.
It is.
It really does look like a video shoot is about to happen, doesn't it?
And we're going to ruin it.
Don't get any furniture. Don't get any pictures. Leave it as it is.
I know. There's also that option. It's just not to do anything to it.
All right.
That's fantastic.
See, here comes the dogs. So you 3 kids.
Yes.
How old are they? I'm trying to gauge how much mess they're going to make in this place.
I know. Well, we do have. This is going to sound awful. We do have somewhere else that we can try and leave stuff and keep kind of strict rules. But do you want to spend your life shouting at people for doing things they can't help doing, like being kids and leaving crap everywhere?
Yeah.
Or do you want to kind of try and enjoy yourselves?
Oh, right. Well,
let's see, shall we?
Right.
That's brilliant. So you can leave all the detritus in the other place and just come to this place when you want pristine cleanliness. Is that the plan?
In fact, I'm now deeply regretting telling either the children or the dogs that it even exists.
Yeah.
No, I was fascinated by writers, the places that they write. Clive James used to have 2 houses in Cambridge next to each other, one in which he lived with his family, and then he'd come down the steps in the morning, go up the steps to the next place, and which is just full of books and his working place, which I always thought was a very enviable setup.
That does sound nice. Actually, weirdly, I write a lot in coffee shops, and I used to.
Oh, right.
In before times, I used to like writing on airplanes and trains, and that little buzz of noise.
You find that helpful?
Yes, and also moving. There's something about moving. Even I think loads of people from all types of work find it easy to write on a train or a plane.
Physical, yeah. Well, I can only think of things when I go for walks. It's only physical movement is the only thing that gets my brain going. So I think you've got a book out this week, haven't you? You and 1,000 others. Go on.
Good luck.
It's all right because my main book comes out at Christmas. This is it's a part of a series. Actually, I will tell you about it because it is quite funny.
Yeah, go on.
in about 2008, I said, right, I think I want to write a boarding school book for grown-ups, you know, because a lot of particularly women read Mallory Towers and all the rest of it. And the office kind of went, yeah, that'd be great, do that. And I wrote it and everybody loved it, and we gave it to the reps and they all loved it and the early readers loved it, and we're like, brilliant. And we put it out under a pseudonym, and no bugger bought it, nobody. And we realised what we'd done is, of course, publishing houses are stuffed with very bookish people and readers and so on. So everyone that had grown up, and lots of women, everyone that had grown up with boarding school books were like, yeah, give me more. And then
and out in the real world, it
whatever.
didn't connect. Yeah.
So I'd written 2, and the second one ends on a real cliffhanger, a real kind of, oh my God. And we left it, and we didn't do anything. And it didn't find a big, because there were going to be 6 like there are in all series. And it didn't get a big audience, but the audience that it found got really,
They wanted number 2.
Yeah.
They were very obsessive about it. So we used to get letters saying, because of course it wasn't my name, we say, you know, has this author died?
Oh, you should have done that.
Yeah, I'm going in for a very serious operation. Would you mind telling me what happens? We got that.
Oh,
God, that's amazing.
It wasn't us, but it
That's
was
astonishing.
single month, just people going, could you just tell us? We just need to know. And so we're like, okay, we will write another one. And in the interim, that was 10 years. And in the interim, of course, there was no social media back then. No. There was I have a bad habit of basing my romantic heroes on people I fancy on television. Probably started by Smash Hits, in fact. And so, of course, in 2008, everybody fancied David Tennant in Doctor Who, which was about 2 years before I realised I was going to spend the next decade of my life working on that show.
Right.
So that's quite embarrassing. And then the third thing was...
he's used to it.
Yes, I imagine. The third thing was that one of the main characters, I wanted a nice, non-specific Eastern European name, and names are always hard for writers. So I plucked one from a news report of a lawyer. But 10 years on, I couldn't any longer have Simone Kardashian walking about.
No, that's a disaster.
No, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
We had to change lots of things, but I have caught it up. So it's not a big book out today. It's a book for kind of people that have been following this series for a very long time.
That's fantastic. Now, I was interested. You mentioned their series are always 6, are they? I've never heard that before. You know more about it than I do. Are they always 6?
The school book series tend to be Mallory Towers, St. Clair's is 6, Harry Potter is 7, but only because it's 6 books and 7 films. Yeah.
Oh, I see.
Mostly 6 years in a senior school. So.
Right.
First year, second year.
So if anybody wants to catch up with your boarding school series, what's the new one called that's out?
The new one is Lessons, and it starts as class rules, lessons, and then I will write tests when I get around to it. But because it's not really my main line,
right? Okay.
I kind of carve bits out for here and there.
So how have you got on during this strange period?
Well, we've been all right because. We've got a garden, so if you've got a garden. At first, I couldn't read, couldn't write, nothing. And somebody explained to me that if you're kind of adrenaline all the time because you're reading the news, then that shuts off your imagination. And that's why people were having these massive dreams all the time, because their imagination needed somewhere to go.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, and that's why it was so vivid. But then, after about 4 weeks, not at risk, it was going to be all right. And so I did all the boring stuff. I did the entire Gaelic Duolingo course. Can I speak Gaelic? No! I've been swizzed. But I did the whole thing. Ha mi a bruna Gaelic.
Wow, that's amazing.
And what did that mean?
It means I'm speaking Gaelic, although if that's the only bit of Gaelic you can say, then technically you're not.
Technically you're not, exactly.
So
did you get a chance to go back and listen to any of the old records or anything like that? Any kind of nostalgia going back and digging out old singles or anything?
Well, no, because anything that's good fun just reminds me of all the good fun that I was having that I was currently not having. So I did what I think everybody else did, was put that Taylor Swift record on repeat.
Right.
And just play it and play it and play it. I tell you, also the other thing I did was I'm learning to play the piano. and I have an exam coming up, and I like playing the piano became like my job.
Very good.
Fantastic.
Which grade are you supposed to be doing?
I'm ready for, as soon as they let you back in the exam hall, I'm doing 7.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's good. Is that classical?
It is, yes.
I got grade 1 and I'm proud of myself. So 7, that's you've stuck with it. So you really can use that room to get a white piano in there and you can play Imagine.
Yeah.
Just like John Lennon did in the White Room. That's the ideal use of it.
If I didn't hate that song.
No, quite. I'm completely with you.
I think everybody would like to agree with you.
We all agree. When I first asked you to do this, you said, well, I'd love to do it, but I'm a terrible chucker. You chuck everything away, do you?
I chuck everything. Do you know the hardest thing, funnily enough, the last big chuck we did was CDs.
Oh, you've got to that stage.
Oh my God, because the thing is, VHS doesn't matter. Books, you know, with me, I get sent a lot of books. They come, they go. It's kind of, and also they're very recyclable books, whereas CDs, nobody wanted them. And every single one was so, trying to explain to my children how much money was invested.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh my God, we had thousands of the buggers, me and my husband both. And he was just trying to find an excuse for, you know, could not do it.
It's hard to feel fondness for CDs somehow. I don't know. Did you feel great affection for them? There's something a bit sort of soulless about them.
I completely agree with you. I didn't feel sad about the physical medium of it. I just felt sad about the terrible money sink.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Especially when they were about, 15 quid or something. It's ridiculous.
Quid. You like 2 songs on them. You hadn't played them in years, or if you had, they were on your Spotify list. So it really didn't matter.
It.
It was just the astonishing, trying to explain to my kids that it took me 3 weeks to earn enough at Woolworths, a concept with which they are unfamiliar.
Yes, quite.
Buy a copy of Peter Gabriel's Soul is astonishing to them. They can't get their heads around it.
So you worked at Woolworths. Go on, tell us about that.
Oh, that was great, because you got first access to the Snippy Corner singles. Do you remember?
Yeah. Last week's charts.
Right. So you got
Snippy Corner. I've never had that.
That's a great record. It's a great expression.
Yeah. So you did. So they were still like 175. You know, they weren't cheap in any meaningful sense when you made 115 an hour. But you got to see what was there, and you got to see all my singles had Snippy Corners. But they were very strict about what you could play in the shop. Which meant, and I still feel it every year now for retail staff when they start playing the Christmas album in October. And there's a lot more Christmas music now, but I think back then there was only one. It just came around. But we weren't allowed to play Band-Aid for some reason. I think the supervisor thought it was socialist.
So where was the Woolworths? Which Woolworths are we talking about here?
Prestwick, which is a very small town with an airport attached.
Right, yes. The only place in the UK that Elvis Presley set foot.
All the hairdressers are called Elvis-related pubs.
Oh, really?
So he wasn't allowed. Was he allowed off the plane? He was, I think. Was he?
He came off the plane.
It refueled, didn't it? That's right.
He did an interview with the Prestwick local paper, I think I'm right in saying. I think they got to him.
I would, because I used to work for the local paper, and you'd think they'd have framed that on the wall, and I don't.
I'm sure I've read that interview. But anyway, whether it's Prestwick paper or some other local paper.
That is, but people like Sydney Devine and that whole West Coast country music of Scotland thing is a big deal. And he kind of helped kind of bring that up, this love for American music that you find in the West Coast.
Right. So there's no point asking you if you got the first single you ever bought or anything like that, is there?
I know what it is.
Go on, tell us.
Nothing. It was the Major Tom by a German singer.
It was called Major Tom. So it was kind of based on
an allusion to Bowie, presumably.
David Bowie.
It wasn't.
And it was, goodness now, it was called Major Tom Coming Home by Peter Schilling.
Wow.
And you would know it if
obscure.
You I know.
Surely.
It's a big hit in Germany, and I just loved it without knowing anything about David Bowie at all. And it had the English version on the A side and the German version on the B side. And it kind of goes, Earth below us. You do it.
Wow.
You probably would. What was the first gig you ever went to? Can you remember?
Nik Kershaw, of course, Nik Kershaw.
Oh, brilliant!
Tiny. I thought I must be very far away from the stage, but I wasn't. He's really.
Nik Kershaw. Was he wearing his snood? Didn't he pioneer the snood?
He pioneered. He certainly had those. Do you remember those soft, rumply boots? And within about a week of him disappearing at the Glasgow Barrowlands, those soft, rumply boots had kind of taken over in a very odd fashion. But it was terribly exciting.
I love all these new adjectives you're introducing
They're
here.
Great.
Rumply,
Snippy corners.
Snippy and rumply.
Rumply, soft rumply.
Sounds
boots.
like a gang of children's toys or something like that.
Yeah, Mr. Men. Yeah.
Oh God.
Mr. Rumply. So you were a big Smash Hits reader back in the day, weren't you?
Oh, massive. One of the weirdest things now is, particularly during lockdown, is how in touch you can be with these kind of great gods of your childhood, and that's kind of really very odd. So yeah, I think Tracy Gillan used to get on the bus and read us bits out, and we were terribly jealous. And also the other nutty thing is lyrics. Having access to lyrics, apart from the Cocteau Twins, was just kind of such a difficult thing to do if you didn't want to sit down and listen to the tape your charts and listen to it over and over again. So it was, I think.
What kind of people were on the cover when you were reading it?
King.
Oh yes.
Paul King.
Yeah.
The golden age. Golden age.
Golden age.
Oh,
Paul King in his self-painted Doc Martin boots.
Oh, bless him, and he's. Well, the thing is, as a larger nosed person, I always had a massive, like representation of other larger nosed people. So I liked him on that basis. But it was really golden era for me because I was 13 in the year of Band Aid and 14 in the year of Live Aid. So, it's like, for my generation, it's like coming of age when punk was happening. Except we hated punk because we were 80s kids.
Did you ever vote in the readers' poll? Did you ever send off who's your most fanciable male?
Paul Young was my.
Oh, brilliant!
It's so banal. I'm so disappointed in myself.
No, that's really original. It's usually Martin Kemp, Nick Rhodes, wasn't it? Adam Ant,
Yes.
Le Bon.
Oh, poor old Adam. I think I was just at the end of the Adam kind of era. He was a wee bit too early for me because, 6 months means everything in this game.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I was in London a couple of years ago and my friend, and I just noticed the streets were full of really annoyed looking teenage girls, even more than usual. And my friend was off to Wembley to see One Direction. So it's a couple of years back. But the problem was, of course, she'd had to buy the One Direction film tickets like a year before they appeared. And a year in pop music for children, every single teenager there was just like, well, they're shit. I hate One Direction. They suck. My friend said it was unbelievable. It was just a whole massive stadium full of girls sitting like this, like they're rubbish.
Disgruntled. Oh, really? I've gone off them. That's hilarious.
Well, so then waited 6 months to see. That's fantastic. I love it.
You can't wait 6 months to see a band.
No.
All about Paul Young, and then I listened to the Smiths, and I was slightly. Oh, and also the big Scottish revival. So Hitsway were a very big band for us.
Oh yeah.
The Waterboys, the Bluebells, all of that was a massive. And Lloyd Cole, I still love Lloyd Cole.
Yeah.
I think that Rattlesnakes album holds up just about forever. I just think it's a near perfect album.
So, what about Duran Duran? Do you ever go in for them at all?
Well, no. I wasn't a Duranian at the time because it was a bit casual. Do you know what I mean? The casuals liked them. So it was seen as a kind of bit naff by those of us that quite like New Order, However, about in the late 90s, early zeros, we went to see them play in Glasgow. And as a live band, they were phenomenal. Really? Genuinely, they could play, they were tight, they were terrific. So I kind of became a late convert. But this is one of the things I do have.
Oh, go on, what you got here?
My publishers published John's autobiography.
God, when did that come out?
It came out, well, it would have been 2018. So not long ago. There we go.
Oh, brilliant.
And it is really quite something because although I wasn't the hugest John fan, I was certainly that era of having monster crushes on pop stars and being pouring all your hopes and dreams and fantasies in them. And this is the best debunking.
Oh, is it really?
of your teenage idols that it's possible. He's delightful. I should say this. He's obviously a lovely, lovely man, but it's the dullest book. It's quite extraordinarily dull. So we've got, and you can tell they had to work really, any page at random. Number 34, Simon Road, had its own garage. My father would often spend weekends tinkering with his car. There was a small garden at the front, slightly larger one at the back. It's all like this.
There's no parties at Studio 54. We're not hanging out with Andy Warhol and.
He does, but he just kind of goes, "Oh, Andy seems fine." He hasn't got a bad word to say about anyone, which is terrible.
Yeah.
His real name is Nigel.
It is.
That's right.
It's just come back to me. Of course.
It is the Nigel is. Look, this is 2.5 pages on the Airfix models he used to make with his dad.
There you go.
There's a bit here where he dear Mum and Dad, they have to reproduce like postcards they found in his mum's attic. You wouldn't recognise me on the beach. I'm trying to master the art of windsurfing. They reprinted this. It's the postcard sent from the place, I can't quite see where it is now, I don't think he mentions it, where they were filming the real video.
Oh, yes.
Oh, right.
It's Sri Lanka.
The one on the yacht, wasn't it?
Yeah. So they're making an absolutely phenomenal piece of popular culture where, as everybody knows, it was full of drugs, everybody shagged, everybody else. It was one of the kind of crystallizing moments of the 80s. And he sends this really sweet note home to his mum saying he's tried windsurfing. And it's just, when I think, because I've got my daughter's coming up through being a teenager and, you know, and seeing who she likes and all the rest of it. And just when I think of the sheer kind of physical soul weight of all the intentions and fantasies of millions and millions 13-year-old girls, you know, it could power the national grid. And he was there going, well, they moved me down to a London hairdresser, but I really liked my Birmingham hairdresser. I mean, this screams.
I love the idea that a pop star is really called Nigel. This is a book idea in this, you know, somebody who turns out to be just really dull at the centre of it.
Such a Nigel, he really is. I mean, delightful, charming.
No,
do you think at no point the editor said to him, mate, there must be something more?
No, they never do.
They just think, well, no, it's going to sell a certain number.
It's a John Taylor book. He's done it.
It's going to sell.
There's loads of pictures and really big type.
And also the other thing about John Taylor, which in his defence, well, he's always a very nice man. Also, he still looks sensational.
He looks fantastic. You see pictures of him, he has an enormous priory or something. Does he? Some fabulous old 17th century stately home somewhere in the southern counties and lives in Los Angeles, which is slightly annoying, actually. But he does look, he's brilliantly preserved.
Yes, yeah. I think what he gives up, there's like one kind of drinks and drugs hell night where he gets into a mild argument with Andy. And after that, he just goes and cleans himself up and it takes about half an hour.
Right.
So.
Yeah, it's funny you were saying this thing about teenage girls' hysteria. And I always used to, I realized this when I went to a very early Smash Hits Poll Winners party.
Oh.
You know, at the down in Docklands, the London Arena or whatever. And we used to let the fans, who were all girls by that stage, in, you know, like 3 hours before it started because it was pouring down outside or whatever. And they'd be in the London Arena, and there would be nothing happening whatsoever. There was not even any music playing. They just screamed. They just screamed and they screamed and they screamed. And I learned something very important there. It's nothing to do with the objects of their affection. It's all to do with the permission to scream.
Yeah.
And being with each other. It's an extraordinary thing. And
which started in the mid-60s. It was exactly the same. Wasn't it? You see that footage of Beatles concerts, you know, before the band even come on, and people are just screaming at nothing.
Yeah.
Screaming just makes them feel good.
They're not even looking at whatever it is that they're supposed to be screaming at.
No.
Their eyes are all over the place. You know, it's just a...
Did you ever go to it?
Are you kidding? To go to that London? I can just imagine suggesting it.
Yeah.
Dad, you know how I'm 14, right? Can I just go to... No. Get the bus up to the... But I tell you what I did do is I answered I had a pen pal.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Smash Hits derived pen
I had
pal.
a Smash Hits derived pen pal in Poland, and that was all very nice. And,
In Poland, you say, God, that's fantastic.
I
What did you write about?
just-
Can you remember? About Nik Kershaw and
Yeah, exactly. That was exactly it. And his name was Zbigniew, which I thought
Rumply
was
Boots. Yeah.
fantastic. And but it was so unbelievably innocent that you were allowed to post a small ad to say, if you like Paul Young, could you write to me, a man in Poland?
But also,
Yeah.
we were looking at some old, I can't remember if it was in Smash Hits or somewhere else, but we were looking at it recently. Some kind of column where people advertise for pen pals. And they published the addresses.
Yes, they did. Yeah.
Yeah.
That
Seems amazing because they say kind of, I'm a 14-year-old Durrani and I live at 23 Acacia Avenue. You know, it seems nowadays it seems absolutely ludicrous.
Nobody, I don't recall. I mean, the Smash Hits during those years were selling 400, 500, 600,000. Absolutely huge. And I don't remember it ever coming unstuck. Do you, Mark?
No, not
Ever.
once.
I don't
Never.
remember, any scandal or anything ensuing from it.
No, a teenage boy came to visit me at my house that I'd met through the Smash Hits thing. And he was just a teenage boy, and we went for a walk, and we went to the amusement arcade, and we didn't.
What's the amusement arcade?
That's great.
I was going to say Puggies, but I didn't know if it would translate.
Maybe
And
slots.
it was
Yeah.
innocent. Yeah, it was.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So what else have you got to show us there? I know you haven't got much, but it's all good.
No.
I'm sure it's all good stuff.
Well, I'm wearing my special dress because
Oh, right, go on.
Yeah.
after all that hysteria of being a teenager, about 4 years ago, I was at a party, and one of my I don't think I'm going to say their name, but one of my very favourite pop stars of the era was at this party.
Oh,
But it
come on.
You'll have to tell us. You're going to have to.
We're just going to sit here until you tell us.
I know. We've got all day.
Oh, okay. Well, do you know, it was because of, mature, kind of respectable lady, and it was Paul Buchanan from the Blue Nile, who has been
Yeah.
Of course.
a huge band for me, a huge band. And I think the Blue Nile are one of those bands that they're called cult, but it just means that people that like them to an extraordinary extent.
Yeah. No,
And
sure.
if you go and they never play live, so that if you do, it's just full of guys crying, and it's just kind of.
Yeah.
I was at one of their very rare gigs at the Palladium in London, and someone heckled from the back and shouted, "Could you not play something a bit more wistful?"
Well, they shouted something more wistful. That's hilarious.
Oh, it was just a real communal Scottish experience. Anyway, he was at the party, and poor man, of course, I'd had a couple glasses of wine. I was like, "Oh, I'm so in love with you," and he was like, "Okay, well, that's nice." And I said, "Well, could you?" See, now I'm getting embarrassed.
Go on.
He said, "You're very much the type of person that I would have liked," which was literally just being a gentleman, but it made my year.
That's the greatest
You
compliment.
set off
That's
skipping
fantastic.
down the street.
Yeah, swinging around lampposts.
Swinging round that
Yeah,
place, absolutely.
Clicking your heels. That's wonderful.
That's it. That's obviously that's such a good line. That is. Jackson, if you go to Jackson Brown show, it probably still goes on nowadays. Even though Jackson Brown's in his 70s, but he's always been very well preserved. And ever since he was like 23 years old, a large part of his audience has been girls and women and whatever. They like the way he sounds, but God, they just love Jackson Brown. And whenever I've been to Jackson Brown concerts, there's always some point where somebody's tuning up and there's a silence, and then you hear a female voice from the audience go, "I love you."
Yes.
And Jackson has got a really good response. He says, "That's nice. I think it's best we don't meet each other."
Oh.
We'd both be disappointed. Who's
that curly-haired, mullety American singer, Michael Bolton?
Oh, yeah.
Mullety.
Another good word, mullety. Yeah.
He was on Oprah, and they opened it up. It must have been live, because otherwise they would never have screened it, because it was so stupid, because they opened up a Q&A to the audience.
All right.
Ladies of a certain age. And it was just one of them after another bursting to tears and going, "Will you have lunch with me?"
Oh, that's brilliant. So there were no questions at all, really. Well, they are questions, but there's exactly just wanted to meet up.
It was adorable. I related very heavily.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, No, I'm sure all those pop stars who've gone through that kind of period, they just have a way of dealing with that. They must encounter somebody like you every day. You know what I mean? If you're Simon Le Bon or whoever, it must just happen absolutely all the time.
I suppose as I've gotten to know more people, I've realised very quickly what is very special to you, because music is such an important part of our lives and it's so emotional, is something that other people will just hear every single minute of every single day. And when I've been out with people like Tracy Thorn or Billy Bragg, or just people for whose music means a lot, it's really, you know, it's a big moment for everybody else, and it's a 1,000,000,007th moment for them. And
Absolutely.
so I've got really, really careful about never, you know, really not rudely going, you're a famous person, I'm going to pretend I've never heard of you or anything you do, you know. Not in that way.
Yeah, you've got to find something midway, haven't you?
But certainly not to kind of, you know, wang on about something that I find.
No, absolutely. That's the worst thing you can possibly do. But no, but it's
Isn't
also...
that why the Stones call themselves the Glimmer Twins?
The Glimmer Twins. You give people a glimmer.
Just give them a little glimmer, just a little tiny frisson of what they're like.
That's all they want. That's all they want. Is to you know, because they are aware, particularly if you're the level of Rolling Stones or people like that, they're acutely aware that if you give somebody some little encounter, they will go off and they will tell 100 people about it.
Yeah,
because it's the most important thing that's happened in their week or their year or their life in extreme cases, and whereas to them it's just, you know, 2:05 on a Tuesday afternoon. And it will be followed by something else. But they are acutely aware of that kind of, that pass-on value of it. You know, it's a fascinating area. You know the story of do you know the story of Bruce Springsteen, the cinema? Okay, so Bruce Springsteen, I don't know when this is, in the 80s probably. He's on tour in the States, and they've got a day off, so he goes to the cinema, goes to the movies on his own, and he's aware at the movies that there are a teenager boy and a girl, I think, further down the row, and they've noticed him, and they're kind of excited. And so at the end of the movie, when the lights come up, they approach him and, you know, and do the fan thing. And then they say, my dad's a huge fan of yours.
And he's never going to believe that
He's never going to believe that we met you. And Bruce Springsteen goes, where do you live? And it turns out they don't live that far away. So he goes with them so that they can turn up in the family living room and say, Dad, there's Bruce Springsteen. Because that's the extreme example of understanding the value of that currency to the person that you... And
the proof of that is that we're talking about it now.
Absolutely.
Which is amazing. We're still telling that story because it reflects so well on it.
You only have to do it once in your life.
I know.
People tell that story forevermore, you know. I
always thought Larry Hagman had a brilliant way of dealing with fans. You remember Larry Hagman in Dallas, you know, and when he met people, he would shake their hand and say, I'm just shaking hands today, which gave the impression that he gets this all the time, so you understand it. But if you caught him yesterday, he probably would have invited you out for dinner. Which I thought was quite clever, really. So
but also, what he meant also was he wasn't signing autographs that day. He wasn't posing for pictures that day.
Yeah, just shaking hands.
It's nowadays, it's harder and harder for those people because mobiles and God knows what, you know, people expect some kind of souvenir absolutely all the time. But Paul McCartney's secret is he never stops.
Just keeps walking.
He shakes hands, hello,
thumbs up.
All, keep going, never stop. Well, so it's traditional on these things, Jenny, that we ask people, what is the greatest record ever made? Because, you know, we're conducting a completely unscientific survey to establish what this. And actually, somebody has already, in the course of this, I think somebody's already said the Blue Nile, haven't they, Mark? I think they have.
We've had a Blue Nile already.
I can't remember who it was.
We've had one.
But we've had all kinds of stuff. You clearly started with Major Tom, which is not the obvious place to start with popular music. So what's the climactic moment of popular music as far as you're concerned?
Well, you know, for me, if you like things that are quite specific, then you can't really extend it to everyone. So for me, and I would say in terms of cost per listen, if you want to work it out that way, it's probably the Kate Bush's Hounds of Love album.
Okay.
Oh, what a great choice.
I don't think there's been a point in my life where it hasn't spoken to a different bit of it, or that there hasn't been a bit of, you know, a different track that I've liked or I've loved, and it introduced me to all sorts of different types of music, and I just thought it was, I just think it's extraordinary. However, it's not for everyone. Is this me leading in, by the way, David, to mentioning the record, and then you're going to play
it? Well, whatever. Come on, do it. Well, over to you, Jenny.
I was thinking, it's always a lovely kind of question to be asked, isn't it? Because it's a lovely thing to think about, and then you can play lots of things, and then, you know, you can keep, or like Kate Rusby came and played at our wedding.
Oh, very good.
Oh, brilliant.
And as a voice, you know, just as a voice, that you could listen to until the end of time. But I was kind of looking for something that nobody would argue with. You know, there's plenty of people, because I like traditional music, there's plenty of people that cannot bear it. You know, and for every person that likes Kate Bush, there's my son going, well, she hasn't got that many Spotify followers. Look at Drake, he's got 9 billion, you know.
Yeah.
So I said, looking for somebody that something that I think is inarguable. And I was writing a scene recently in a book that I've got coming out next year, and it's about somebody getting married in a hospital who's not well. And I was looking for a wedding song that would kind of sum up everything, the most exuberant thing I could think of. So I wrote this huge long scene about this song, as usual, as a novelist, trying not to use any lyrics from the song.
Yeah, well, you quite.
It'll cost you.
It will either cost you, or they'll give it to you for free, or a mixture of both. I wanted to use some Sufjan Stevens lyrics, and he wrote me back to me beautifully, and he said, I'm so delighted you love that song. Of course you can have them for free, I don't mind. And I got a massive legal the next day saying, I'm Sufjan's manager. He doesn't own those lyrics. He hasn't owned them for years.
That always happens, because they want to be seen to be the person. Of course you can have them. That's no problem. But the publisher will get in there and say, we're not letting this money opportunity go by.
No idea. But then the Proclaimers, I wrote a whole book this year called 500 Miles, and they let us use everything. And they were just, could not have been genuinely, and they own their own stuff, and they were brilliant. Or they don't quite, but anyway. So this one I thought I'll never get the rights for, but I'm going to stick in because I think no one would argue with it. And then I went away the following week to France to a piano boot camp. Never mind. And there was one of the people that was at piano boot camp was an Iranian robotics specialist. So literally, if you had to put the polar opposite to me in a room, he was there. And there was people very getting up and playing the piano, and he said, could you play the best song ever written? And it was the same song. And I thought, this is just a song, and it's Stevie Wonder's version of As.
All right.
Wow, that's brilliant.
So what album is that on? Is that on Songs in the Key of Life?
I think I'm going to say Best of Stevie Wonder.
Best of Stevie Wonder. No shame there.
Oh, well, I wouldn't argue with you. So in your book that you've done, is it quoted?
You're allowed to say the title, so I can say it was As by Stevie Wonder As, and somebody says, oh, well, it's Mozart, effectively, if you want a pop song that. And then I can have people dancing to it and move, and I can say things like then as the second chorus hit, and so I can say that. I can't type and as the ocean covers every mountain.
Right. Okay.
I know, it's a complicated. You're allowed to use the title. You can't use the lyrics. So
you've obviously gone into this a lot more than I have. I've always had the view, whenever my publishers say, I'm going to go and check that with the music publisher, I say, don't ever check anything with the music publisher, because you'll only get one answer unless you get the Proclaimers, which is you can't do it. I'm a great believer in don't ask for permission, ask for forgiveness. But but
if you go ahead and publish it, surely they're going to come looking for you afterwards, aren't they? Or is that too mean-spirited?
Well, that entirely depends. I was just reading the other day that not Ricky Gervais, Steve Carell in the American Office just sings a little bit of a Bon Jovi song off the top of his head, like 2 lines, not even 2 lines. And they had to pay $60,000 for that. because obviously, well, that's television. That's a different thing. It's more.
Well, no, I mean, it will cost you a lot of money. And I wanted to quote a line from Pretty in Pink and the song, and they wanted $9,000 for it. And every year the big job in I'm a Celebrity and Big Brother is to cut out people singing music they don't want to license.
I suppose so.
So in some ways, you can't blame them. They're so desperate to make some money out of it, because the opportunities to make money out of stuff seem to be contracting all the time, don't they?
Well, I don't know. Not for music publishers. They're doing better than ever. It's the one repudiation of the conventional wisdom that you have to work for a living is music publishing, because you sign it up and then 40 years later it's still making money for you. Songwriter's long dead or whatever, but somehow it's still turning over.
Futures.
Sorry?
You can buy futures in it now. You can trade in it.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. Well, yeah, definitely. Well, we're always commenting on the podcast about people who've just sold their catalogs, so that they get the money now and somebody's going to make the money in the future. It'll carry on forever. And of course, copyright terms keep getting extended, don't they? In America, they go back. They go back to Congress and say, about another 40 years if we back your campaign. Oh, right, fine. It's no trouble at all.
This is good for us.
Well, it's no good for me, but yeah, all right, fine. I think it benefits songwriters and the Disney Corporation more than it benefits you and me. But anyway. Well, look, it's been lovely talking to you, Jenny. So are you going to go away and fill that room now with bric-a-brac?
No! I'm going to go back to my original idea of kind of just locking everyone else out the house.
Yeah, right.
It looks like a skating rink next door, doesn't it? Absolutely amazing.
Send you a picture of the white piano when it shows up.
Yes, we'll look forward to that. Jenny, it's been lovely talking to you.
Fantastic talking to you.
All the very best. Cheers.
Brilliant.
Bye.